Hiya, welcome back to the channel Hinsters, and if you're new, please consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. My name is Hinny and I'm a spiritual astrologer and intuitive tarot reader. If you're interested in a reading with me, check out the description below for more details. So, Mars Direct, finally, officially on November 14th, 2020. There's a lot that I want to say on this astro event, so please see the timestamps below if you prefer to skip to something specific that you are more interested in. I chose the SZA lyric for this video not only because she's so scorpionic and it's Scorpio season, but because I feel the lyric is very reflective of this particular Mars Goes Direct 2020 moment, which happens also to be in the 2020 Scorpio season. Yes, Mars is waking up and the engine is about to rev, but this year of 2020 and this particular Scorpio season, I feel is much more about our having to take apart and revamp the entire engine, and not simply about the engine switching off and then on again. The stellium of planets in Capricorn has made this year excruciatingly about patience, and this patience power is not only, or rather, this patience power is only intensified in Scorpio season. Mars has been retrograde in Aries, the sign it's said to be most comfortable in. And in contrast, the overarching rat year energies has sort of frustrated this retrograde and the year more broadly. The rat is the first phase of the Chinese zodiacal cycle and shares actually many energies with Aries. And, ordinarily, rat energy wants us to race and make gains and to survive. Mars is also the ruler of Scorpio, so I feel that this particular Scorpio season has been and continues to be deep and internally transformative for Mars-ruled people especially, but also the collective more broadly. So I say all this to say that Mars is not just going to spring awake on the 14th and everything will be back to normal. The normal schedule of winning the race and leading the way. Mars wakes up to some very specific things, and the rat year energies have also matured into something that makes the collective less selfish and impulsive and more calculating and guarded. So let's go a little more into these energies to paint a better picture of Mars waking up and when the engine is most likely to really get revving. But first of all, what is Mars? Mars is an archetype of fire, passion, determination. It is said traditionally that Mars tears things up, Mars divides, Mars kills. Mars is also commonly associated with war, anger, fighting, how we argue, taking and winning. Mars plays an important part, I feel, in our individual sexuality, our desires, who and what really drives us, and what we actually find fun and exciting. But Mars is not just the ruler of Aries, which is cardinal fire, but also of Scorpio, which is fixed water. And I often describe Scorpio as more like boiling water under thick ice, wherein the power is not necessarily witnessed immediately, but it is secretly, steadily coming up. I'm one of those astrologers as well who still places Mars as Scorpio's ruler and Pluto as Scorpio's secondary ruler. Mars is often also associated with impulse, action, movement, yet Mars is about how we strategize and how we handle deep, intense feelings like rage and revenge and lust, and how we conquer, not only through sheer outward force, but also through making moves as though we are playing a game of life or death chess. If anyone has seen, by the way, The Queen's Gambit, which is this mini-series you can find on Netflix, you will quite likely agree that The Queen's Gambit is a brilliant illustration of all the sides of Mars. The protagonist is played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who, by the way, has a whole stellium of planets in Aries and is literally, in the series, a female orphan chess player rising up the ranks in the Cold War era. And I don't know Anya's rising sign, but Scorpio rising would not surprise us at all. Anyway, if you've not watched it, I recommend it as a brilliant sort of Scorpio season example of material. Perhaps a lot of us also have been experiencing the Mars retrograde, and especially the Scorpio season, final phase of that retrograde, as a Scorpionic period of reflection and slow but sure re-strategizing and reclaiming of control and power. It's so interesting that a long chunk of this current pandemic has actually even reflected the Mars retrograde, as many of us are forced or more likely to have been sat in our homes with relatively little to do and a great deal to simply wait for, and a whole lot of time spent reflecting on our next moves in a heightened life and death territory. Mars retrograding in Aries, which started officially around September 10th, 2020, has made plenty of us feel completely out of control, unable to initiate very much or anything at all in some cases. Even those of us who are in safer physical places, countries away from COVID-19, or those who tried as well to wriggle out of and or simply deny the pandemic, there have still been setbacks and a lot of authority as well crashing down on those people's usual abilities to assert and win things over. Perhaps many of us have been able to take this time to redesign our CVs and our resumes, or throw ourselves into new leadership somehow, and to start planning how to paint on new canvases, because that's also what Aries does, what the rat wants to do as well. And what has the rat year meant for us so far then? So the rat year is so important to factor in, energetically speaking, because the Chinese zodiac phases represent year-long overarching energies that don't just go away after like a month or two passes. And just speaking personally, I remember around the beginning of the pandemic that there was a burst of like selfish surges, like panic buying and bosses firing people in frenzy. Landlords would be reluctant to cooperate with like suddenly desperate and jobless people. Governments all over would take ages to financially assist the bare minimum or provide enough. And still now, these darker rat energies are still found, with people taking holidays and putting their own interests before the sort of essential travel only guidelines. And the rat is very shrewd and forward thinking. And so it's easy for us, or it was easy for us perhaps in the late 2019, early 2020, to have been caring only about ourselves and how much we can gather to protect ourselves and our interests. The rat can easily make you sneaky, or deliberately withhold your true intentions, and sometimes to almost obsess about your own survival. But the rat can provide us with such brilliance as well. It has likely made us, many of us, super entrepreneurial. It's forced us to be more frugal and clever with our resources than ever before. And it's even made many become fiercely protective of and vested in their families. And perhaps before they weren't, like before rat year really kicked in, they just didn't care that much. Possibly from like around Leo Virgo seasons of 2020, some of us started to switch and vibe with the more sort of internalized sides of rat energy. And so relationships and networking became more important for survival and for building up of resources. And also watching what we say and when we say it too. And right now in Scorpio season, these rat energies have this peak in the year where resources and motivations and relational bonds get so intense and so preciously internalized that we are by this point ready to take on pretty much anything that might threaten our survival. So let's get back now to November 14th, 2020 specifically, when Mars officially goes direct. Okay, so as I often say on this channel, the official dates of retrogrades ending or beginning don't mean that the energy suddenly changes on those dates exactly. There are shadow periods. The energy still takes time to completely fizzle out. Think of it as Mars still needing to stretch and acclimatize before heading out into the world again. But for those who have natal placements, exactly 15 degrees of Aries and or 15 degrees of the other cardinal signs, so that's Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, then quite likely you will feel this shift exactly on or close to November 14th. If this is you, by the way, do leave a comment and let us know what you're experiencing or have already experienced, because sometimes we experience in the build-up to a significant astral event and not necessarily right on or in the aftermath. One thing I want to talk about is also how Mars is waking up at this moment to tighten a sextile with the North Node in Gemini. And I'm reading this as things being easier to take on when it comes to forging a new path or getting back on track when it comes to mentally mapping out where we're actually going moving forward. It's all there for us to simply feel more motivated, more excited, to take on challenges instead of feeling defeated or hopeless. And also, of course, we might feel more passionate about embodying a whole other side of ourselves that we never even knew, or perhaps that we have suppressed. Of course, North Node energy can also make us obsessive and completely lose focus on the present. And this is a sextile, so it's not necessarily good. It just means that the Mars, Aries, North Node, Gemini energies are all melding perfectly for any Mars, Aries, North Node, Gemini event to happen. With it being the rat year also, and still Scorpio season, my advice would be to take some care to avoid overly obsessive energies or trying to mastermind things too much. And this sextile gets especially strong between around December 9th and up to December 11th, 2020. And basically from around December 21st, 2020, the sextile is very weak and eventually fizzles out. Mars is also waking up in late Scorpio season, right? When we have just about 10 days of official Scorpio season remaining. And I'm reading this as Mars not jumping right out of bed, full of giddy, naive objectives, but it's more like Mars is very slowly stretching, carefully choosing the outfit it's going to wear, and having a well-paced and wholesome breakfast. And then when the time feels right, Mars is going to come to the front door, open that door, see the sunlight and the trees and the sky, and then still Mars won't be jumping. No, Mars will sit down gently on the doorstep or the porch chair with a cup of black coffee, and Mars will spend some time watching the people go by, watching the birds and the cars, and Mars will be waiting not just for the body, but for the mind to start clicking into full gear, to start waking up. Mars still carries the experience of some bad dreams and big downfalls during the retrograde, and beforehand, there's still a quiet that's going to continue for a while. A state of very gradually warming up the engine before it gets hot enough and then starts to vibrate, and then starts to make noise, and then starts to actually power the gears of our drive. I see this particular Mars going direct moment of 2020 as a soft, easy does it, calmer approach that humbly welcomes the eventual and equally tempered Sagittarius season. I don't think it's going to be like last year, when we pretty much seemed to start Sag season very early on, and it also flew by. This time in 2020, I feel it's more like a small candle lit flame, and the flame is wavering with a sort of wisdom of how to hold your horses, and that is still very much in need as well. This flame needs still protective hands to be around it so that it isn't snuffed out. Mars drinks that black coffee with the new knowledge that the motivation is going to be to protect, to provide sanctuary, and to use the fire to give hope, and not to burn the self or to burn others, and not to burn out either. On November 14th as well, we have Mars waking up to an in conjunction, or a quincunx, with the moon in Scorpio. This particular aspect is about taking another look at territory that you thought was way too different to or beyond you to even like contemplate, and to be interested in it, to explore it even now. The moon does move incredibly fast, and so this is intriguing. This is like an intriguing window that's only really open on the 14th, but it is also a peak to the very soon to come official new moon in Scorpio around the 15th. So if you're able on the 14th to unite some intention of yours, that's the new moon, with something or someone that seems wildly alien to you, then you might be pleasantly surprised by the results in a month's time. Finally, I wanted to mention that when Mars is waking up, Venus will still be in Libra, and Venus is said to be comfortable in Libra, and has of course been direct in this comfort, while Mars is only just waking up, right, from retrograde in its own usual comfort zone. I read this as us being wise to choose peace over conflict if we can help it, and to focus on pleasure and not pain, and to put sensible thought first, and then later the actions can be made. Venus will also be powerfully trining the North Node in Gemini that I mentioned before, and this trine is strong until around November 16th, 2020, before it fizzles out and is gone by the 21st. This could then be like a great chance for us to make use of some already existing relationship with someone or something, which can easily help us navigate the Mars North Node sextile that I talked about. During this time, really nice things could happen when you pursue those North Node things. Real balance can be achieved, especially for our mental health, and even for some, a big sense of conquering mental health issues. This could come around this time. Venus also has some power over the stellium of planets in Capricorn, as Venus squares these planets, and things like melancholy, hopelessness, and toxicity, and all that jazz, they receive a necessary challenge. And this challenge is it's going on now, it has been for a little while now, but this challenge is to cut all of that out and to go easier on ourselves, and also for these harsher, heavier energies to be forced sometimes into a sort of soft submission. And this can play out in a million ways. It could be uncomfortable at first, or daunting, tense, but the end result is softness and a reduction of those things, like melancholy. And this is going to be particularly interesting and strong around November 21st, 2020, when Libra Venus is around 29 degrees of Libra, just about to smoothly swim into Scorpio. So yeah, I really do feel that this Mars going direct moment is generally more welcome than not welcome. I see a lot of obstacles appearing less formidable and more surmountable to us. I want to end this with a quick story about a spider, actually. So there's this little spider that made its home on a little radiator in my living room under a small towel, which I'd put down months ago so I could rest the iron and the steamer there so as not to frig up the radiator. Anyway, I also store like big bottles of water right next to this little spot, as well as some guitars and a lyre. And the first time I noticed the spider was months ago, and I got the fright of my life because as I moved to get a bottle of water, it sort of sprang like lightning out of the hiding place and onto its tiny little web, probably triggered by the vibrations, and only to be disappointed and confused that there was in fact no prey. It was just Hinny. Its web was like small, and like I never noticed anything having been caught there, so I kind of felt sorry for the spider. But each time I'd get water or like accidentally knock the instruments, it would run out and then retreat, still with no luck. But recently, in the past week, roughly, I noticed the web got a bit bigger, and there's like some stronger threads running to the instruments, but not to the water bottles. Yeah, we've clearly learned to get along, and I honestly don't mind the spider being there. I also noticed that the spider had caught something in the web, finally. And I was oddly relieved for the spider. I even dreamt of the spider recently, and it was much bigger, and its web much stronger. It was also super fast and surprising. It didn't like hurt us or anything in the dream. It was more that I was in awe of it, and we just sort of coincided. But also I was seeing all of its progress. It's excruciating progress. So I do want to end it here, like if you're still listening, that with Mars going direct, Mars is going to be speaking to the Scorpio archetype, the spider archetype, the snake, the eagle. I feel there's going to be such a mutually respecting dynamic coming from Mars, a very powerful yet so calm and like unassuming vibe. And I think it's going to be very emotional for some of us as we finally see the fruits of months and months of labor. But not only that, we are also joyous for the fruits of others and can already feel the wish upon a star incredible hyper interconnected season that's going to be Aquarius season. Like we can already start to feel this tingle of Aquarius. So I'll leave it there. Do let me know in the comments your own reflections on Mars this year and your own experiences if you want to share. So thanks, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and well. Bye-bye.